Here's this stupid thing. I got a flat on my bike last night, so I had to walk 16 blocks to get home. That's okay, it's happened before. So I got the inner tube, and I'll fix it while I play video games. Here's a new one. Piggy Jackpots on W Casino. It features a stupid looking pig. Gosh darn, is that silly. Alright, Age of Conan Unchained. I'm being attacked right away. I haven't even had time to put on my tripod. I haven't had time to put the camera on the tripod yet. Dang it. I hate when I flub up with my English. I can't help it. I'm just a man of many mistakes. Okay, so we're here on Age of Conan. If I can work this tripod. I have a new second mirror right there. Cool, huh? I always try and make improvements on my video game setup. Okay. So I'll fix the bike tire soon. Okay, we're in ancient Hyborean 10,000 years ago. In a fictional world created by Robert E. Howard and filled in by the kind and good people of Funcom, a company from Norway. I think I just want to stand here until another feral beast comes. That'll be fun. I'm on part 11 of the Hyborean Age. I really want to finish this so I can get on with my life. 1, 2, 3, 4. Still have 8 pages to go. But the newer weapons and mail were not enough to break the lines. For years, the superior armaments and sturdy courage of the Bosonians held the invaders at bay, aided when necessary by Imperial Aquilonian troops. During this time, the Hyrcanians came and went, and Zamora was added to the empire. Then treachery from an unexpected source broke the Bosonian lines. Before chronicling this treachery, it might be well to glance briefly at the Aquilonian Empire. Always a rich kingdom, untold wealth had been rolled in by conquest, and sumptuous splendor had taken the place of simple and hardy living. But degeneracy had not yet sapped the kings and the people. Though clad in silks and cloth of gold, they were still a virile race. But arrogance was supplanting their former simplicity. They treated less powerful people with growing contempt, levying more and more tributes on the conquered. Argos, Zingara, Ophir, Zamora, and the Shemite countries were treated as subjugated provinces, which was especially galling to the proud Zingarans, who often revolted despite savage retaliations. Koth was practically tributary, being under Aquilonia's protection against the Hyrcanians, but Numidia, the Western Empire, had never been able to subdue, although the latter's triumphs were of the defensive sort and were generally attained with the aid of Hyborean armies. During this period, Aquilonia's only defeats were her failure to annex Numidia, the rout of an army sent into Samaria, and the almost complete destruction of an army by the Aesir. Just as the Hyrcanians found themselves unable to withstand the heavy cavalry charges of the Aquilonians, so the latter, invading the snow countries, were overwhelmed by the ferocious hand-to-hand fighting of the Nordics. But Aquilonia's conquests were pushed to the Nilus, where a Stygian army was defeated with great slaughter, and the king of Stygia sent tribute, once at least, to divert invasion of his kingdom. Bithynia was reduced in a series of whirlwind wars, and preparations were made to subjugate the ancient rival at last, Numidia. With their glittering hosts greatly increased by mercenaries, the Aquilonians moved against their old-time foe, and it seemed as if the thrust were destined to crush the last shadow of Numidian independence. But contentions arose between the Aquilonians and their Bosonian auxiliaries. As the inevitable result of imperial expansion, the Aquilonians had become haughty and intolerant. They derided the ruder, unsophisticated Bosonians, and hard feeling grew between them. The Aquilonians despising the Bosonians, and the latter resenting the attitude of their masters, who now boldly called themselves such, and treated the Bosonians like conquered subjects, taxing them exorbitantly, and conscripting them for their wars of territorial expansion, wars the profits of which the Bosonians shared little. Scarcely enough men were left in the marches to guard the frontier, and hearing of Pictish outrages in their homelands, whole Bosonian regiments quit the Numidian campaign and marched to the western frontier, where they defeated the dark-skinned invaders in a great battle. Well, that's pretty cool. Let's take a break and do some killing. Up here is a werewolf house. Brutish dark beast. Oh, let's kill him. These are nasty. Nasty lycanthropes. Don't eat their meat. Probably get sick. Let's see what's over here. Malicious shadows. I fought them. They pose no threat to me. Alright, there's a nice view. Shoot, how do you change the camera view? No? I can't remember. Just with my mouse. That looks pretty cool. Alright, let's read a little more. This desertion, however, was the direct cause of Aquilonia's defeat by the desperate Numidians, and brought down on the Bosonians the cruel wrath of the imperialists, intolerant and short-sighted as imperialists invariably are. Aquilonian regiments were secretly brought to the borders of the marches. The Bosonian chiefs were invited to attend a great conclave, and in the guise of an expedition against the Picts, bands of savage Shemitish soldiers were quartered among the unsuspecting villagers. The unarmed chiefs were massacred. The Shemites turned on their stunned hosts with torch and sword, and the armored imperial hosts were hurled ruthlessly on the unsuspecting people. From north to south, the marches were ravaged, and the Aquilonian armies marched back from the borders, leaving a ruined and devastated land behind them. And then the Pictish invasion burst in full power along those borders. It was no mere raid, but the concerted rush of a whole nation, led by chiefs who had served in Aquilonian armies, and planned and directed by Gorm, an old man now, but with the fire of his fierce ambition undimmed. This time there were no strong walled villages in their path, manned by sturdy archers, to hold back the rush until the imperial troops could be brought up. The remnants of the Bosonians were swept out of existence, and the blood-mad barbarians swarmed into Aquilonia, looting and burning, before the legions, warring again with the Nemedians, could be marched into the west. Zingara seized this opportunity to throw off the yoke, which example was followed by Carinthia and the Shemites. Whole regiments of mercenaries and vassals mutinied and marched back to their own countries, looting and burning as they went. The Picts surged irresistibly eastward, and host after host was trampled beneath their feet. Without their Bosonian archers, the Aquilonians found themselves unable to cope with the terrible arrow fire of the barbarians. From all parts of the empire, legions were recalled to resist the onrush, while from the wilderness horde after horde swarmed forth in apparently inexhaustible supply. And in the midst of this chaos, the Cimmerians swept down from their hills, completing the ruin. They looted cities, devastated the country, and retired into the hills with their plunder. But the Picts occupied the land they had overrun, and the Aquilonian Empire went down in fire and blood. Then again the Hyrcanians rode from the blue east. The withdrawal of the imperial legions from Zamora was their incitement. Zamora fell easy prey to their thrusts, and the Hyrcanian king established his capital in the largest city of the country. This invasion was from the ancient Hyrcanian kingdom of Turan on the shores of the inland sea, but another, more savage Hyrcanian thrust came from the north. Hosts of steel-clad riders galloped around the northern extremity of the inland sea, traversed the icy deserts, entered the steppes, driving the aborigines before them, and launched themselves against the western kingdoms. These newcomers were not at first allies with the Turanians, but skirmished with them as with the Hyboreans. New drifts of eastern warriors bickered and fought until all were united under a great chief who came riding from the very shores of the eastern ocean. With no Aquilonian armies to oppose them, they were invincible. They swept over and subjugated Brithunia and devastated southern Hyperborea and Carinthia. They swept into the Cimmerian hills, driving the black-haired barbarians before them. But among the hills, where cavalry was less effectual, the Cimmerians turned on them, and only a disorderly retreat at the end of a whole day of bloody fighting saved the Hyrcanian hosts from complete annihilation. While these events had been transpiring, the kingdoms of Shem had conquered their ancient master, Koth, and had been defeated in an attempted invasion of Stygia. But scarcely had they completed their degradation of Koth when they were overrun by the Hyrcanians and found themselves subjugated by sterner masters than the Hyboreans had ever been. Meanwhile, the Picts had made themselves complete masters of Aquilonia, practically blotting out the inhabitants. They had broken over the borders of Zingara, and thousands of Zingarians, fleeing the slaughter into Argos, threw themselves on the mercy of the westward sweeping Hyrcanians, who settled them in Zamora as subjects. Behind them as they fled, Argos was enveloped in the flame and slaughter of Pictish conquest, and the slayers swept into Ophir and clashed with the westward riding Hyrcanians. The latter, after their conquest of Shem, had overthrown a Stygian army at the Nilus and overrun the country as far south as the Black Kingdom of Amazon, of whose people they brought back thousands as captives, settling them among the Shemites. Possibly they would have completed their conquests in Stygia, adding it to their widening empire, but for the fierce thrusts of the Picts against their western conquests. Nemedia, unconquerable by Hyboreans, reeled between the riders of the east and the swordsmen of the west, when a tribe of Aesir, wandering down from their snowy lands, came into the kingdom and were engaged as mercenaries. They proved such able warriors that they not only beat off the Hyrcanians, but halted the eastward advance of the Picts. Alright, that's good enough for now. Thanks for watching.